In this episode, we discuss video cameras, and we're talking small video cameras, that is, for doing ride around tours, if you will, on your railroad. We dive in a bulk of the discussion. We dive in a little more in depth, a little more detail on speed matching locomotives, but not just necessarily speed matching, but doing a speed profile of your locomotive, getting it profiled to how you want it to run, and what configuration variables you should use. And then we give you an update on the Iowa Eastern Railroad. So stick around because we're going to get the show on the tracks. Welcome, my friends, to episode 87. I hope Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, was good to you. Otherwise, I hope your holidays were good. We are close to the new year for us, at least here in the States. And unfortunately, this episode, which is the last one of the year, unfortunately, we're not doing the recap like we did last year. Just I thought about it ahead of time, when I say ahead of time, that would have been like at least a month ago, so I could go through this last year's podcast and write down notes from each one, to be able to do a final overview. Unfortunately, I just A, didn't think about it, and B, really in the last few weeks haven't had the time. Excuse me. So in this episode, to start out, I'll start out with, on our YouTube channel, which has grown significantly. I had somebody make a comment, and then I've had a few people reach out to me so I have a couple videos up there of layout ride, if you will, kind of point of view, where I took a little camera and put it on the front. Actually, I put it on a car and pushed that in front of a locomotive the whole way around. And the comment, I guess the one main comment that really stood out to me was, basically they were expressing the fact that they see all these point of view layout ride videos, and none of the people who put them out show what kind of cameras they use. And there are a lot of different cameras you could do. I remember on my old railroad, I have, in fact, it's a video camera just like what I got now. I actually took that and set it on a flat car and started it and pushed it around. Fortunately, on that layout, when I did that, I didn't really have a lot of tight spaces like I do on this railroad. And I also had a lot more of a basement for the railroad, so things were spread out a little more, And I'm still going to try it with my video camera that I got, but I got to make sure everything's set perfect as far as size-wise, because the video camera is, a palm-sized video camera. And I just got to make sure it'll clear. Last thing I want to do is have it not clear, and especially on my incline, that is, even though there's access to it, it's limited access kind of thing. But to get back to the camera that I used on those two videos, I guess I'll reference you to our YouTube channel of Model Railroad Talk first. The first one I did was, a year and a half ago at least. And then the second one I did was, I want to say, in the last 6 months, I did that one. And now I know the video is not the greatest, and it is kind of jumpy. I understand that. I think I may possibly have a reason for it. I don't know. I have to get that figured out, and we'll talk about that here. But to start out, though, the camera that I used, is I actually got it off wish.com, And basically what it is the title of it or whatever is mini wireless camera, super small home security camera, DIY portable Wi-Fi camera, remote, view, smart P2P IP surveillance camera. So basically, that's the title. Okay. When I purchased it, I want to say it was, oh, I don't know, between 10 and 12 bucks. Right now it's $16.82, and that could change. And then I think there was like $3 shipping, something like that. So for under 20 bucks, even now, you can get this particular camera. What I like about it though is the the lens itself is small. I would say it's probably no bigger than, oh, quarter inch by quarter inch square and maybe an eighth inch deep. But then it's got like a ribbon band, if you will, that has the wires or whatever that go back to, and that ribbon band's probably, oh, I don't know, 3-4 inches long. And that goes back into like a little base that's, if I had to guess, probably an inch wide by, I don't know, 2.5, maybe 3 inches long, and it's maybe 3/4 of an inch thick at most. That holds the battery, a place for an SD card. You can actually um, take. There's a picture button and a video button, and then there's an on-off switch, and then obviously a charging port. But it has its own battery. You can charge it, and which is nice. And um, what I really liked about it was the fact that the camera, the lens itself, was within reason movable. Okay, you weren't set to, okay, you got a big bulky camera and you're stuck. Like what I do is they make those little like craft dots, is what they're called. They're like clear little dots of adhesive, and they're kind of gooey. I don't know how to explain it, but I'll take one of those and I'll just take a car. Usually it's a gondola because it's easier, and I'll just put a little dot on the front of that. I'll put the lens on there and I'll set it in, set the base of it in the gondola, and like I said, put it on the front of the locomotive, get it going, and push it around. Um, there are some nice features to this camera. You can invert the lens, I guess. So if you like what I do most of the time, I have to have my lens inverted because of the way I place the lens. So you can flip it. It does have like night mode. It's got several different things for it, but this isn't a product listing, or I should say a product review by no means. But the biggest thing for this is, like I said, it takes a micro SD card, unless you buy it with one. And granted, the one that I have, it's only 720p. I am currently looking for at least a 1080p, if not like a 2K or 4K camera, small one like this. And I have a few in mind. I just got to sit down and figure out which one I want. And they are a different style of camera for like the lens. So I just want to find something that is going to work for me. But it does have, and I think this may be the issues, which we'll get into a little bit, but it does have a memory card slot for a max of a 32 gig SD card, micro SD card, that is. But it's also got its own built-in Wi-Fi, so you can hook up with your phone and you can record directly to your phone. I know somewhere around our house we have a 32 gig micro SD card. I just don't know where it's at, and I got to find it. And I want to try that in there because currently I've got a 64 gig in there, and it is saying that I can format the card, but it's not recognizing the card. And I believe, so like if I said earlier, how if you go back and watch the ride around videos, right? They're jumpy and it's kind of just not, it's not obviously a high quality. I think a lot of that has to do because I was recording on my phone through the Wi-Fi enabled on the camera, where I believe if I had an actual 32 gig card in there and recorded directly to that, I believe that that would help the jumpiness, I guess the best way to put it, of that. I don't know. I've got to try it. But anyways, but I went this route though, is I wanted to make sure before I went and spent, and I'm not talking a lot more money, but the way I look at things when it comes to model railroading is, okay, if I spend $50 or $60 or even $80 on a small camera like that, how else can I use it, or how else will I be able to use it besides just for that one purpose I'm originally buying it for? And the reason being is because that, say $30 to $60 or $80, whatever, for that camera, let's face it, that could buy at least a couple rail cars, or go towards a locomotive, or maybe go towards, switch machines, or, just different things on the railroad. And do I really need it right now? And so when I originally bought this, and I've had this for, well, I'm looking right now, when I purchased it. I purchased it, it would have been September of 2023. So a little over a year ago. Um, when I originally bought it, wanted to make sure that I would be interested in doing layout tours, and also I use it when I'm laying down track and stuff, because get down to that low perspective, it actually it'll help you kind of point, or it helps you by you're able to visually see um, issues in the track. Something that you may not like. Maybe there's a little extra twist in one area that you don't like. It's supposed to be a straight section, or um, maybe when you were connecting a piece of flex track to a turnout. Okay, maybe you thought it looks straight, but when you get down that lower angle, it's not really straight, and maybe that's why particular cars derail there, whatever, that kind of thing. So that's another reason why I purchased it at the time, um, I was still laying track down. So it, it wasn't really originally purchased to take videos, ride around videos, as far as to post them, for others' enjoyment. It was for basically mine. But then with the YouTube channel and stuff like that, I kind of here recently just decided, I'm going to look into upgrading that. But my thing is I figured, why spend a lot of money on that style of camera when I'm really not going to have any use for it outside of the railroad? I mean, I may down the road, but right now I don't. And so, I do know, once I start getting more scenery and stuff like that, I am planning on doing more layout um, videos and stuff like that, and switching videos, for our YouTube channel and stuff. So eventually I will upgrade that, but it's something that a lot of people you might see, but a lot of people don't think of, or a lot of people do think, well, that'd be cool to be able to, have something, in the perspective of a locomotive engineer. And honestly, I've never thought about this until now, but I believe you could probably put that lens. Uh, Now, mind you, you would have to have a dummy locomotive where there's no drive or anything in it, and you would obviously have to put it on the front of your consist. But I believe the camera is small enough, you might even be able to, at least for HO scale, um, you would be able to put it inside the cab and actually kind of get a inside cab view, looking forward or backwards, whatever, depending on how you have it, with it. So I do know for HO scale, the battery box, whatever you want to call it, that the camera lens attaches to. I do know that that is small enough that you would be able to fit it inside the body, without any problems. But there again, like I said, it would have to be a dummy locomotive with no drive or anything, drive motor or anything like that in there. So, but yeah, I know we've done a video. We're going to be doing a video on that camera for our YouTube channel. But I just wanted to bring it up. It's something that when that person made that comment, and I had a few people reach out to me through YouTube asking the same thing. of course, I told them I will do a video, which I'm planning on. Um, I just thought, some people see that, even on listening to the podcast, maybe you've never been on YouTube, you know, um, it's something, it is kind of cool to do. This camera would work good. You could use it for N scale. Um, Even N scale, Z scale would be a little big for, but then obviously anything bigger than N scale, it'd work great. The bigger the better. You'd be able to put in multiple, the bigger the locomotive. So, um, anyways, so yeah, I just figured I would bring that up and kind of point you in the direction if that's something you've been thinking about. All right, now to move on. I know we've talked about this. I brought it up in the past. It have been episodes 71 and 73, and that is speed matching locomotives. And I know back then I said we'll touch on it a little bit later, and got pulled away as far as the podcast go and other avenues. And I recently just got done speed matching my locomotives, and I'll explain why here in a minute. And I figured, I'd go into a little more depth. This portion is going to be a little more technical than probably than episode 71 and 73 that we talked about as far as speed matching locomotives. So, basically, to reiterate, in case this is your first episode of Model Railroad Talk, speed matching locomotives, just because you buy two locomotives from the same manufacturer that use the same decoder, they could be the same exact model. What you could buy them to where they're the same road number, okay, and they could potentially run slightly different, okay. Just and a lot of that is the motor inside, the gears, the gears and motors and the drive shafts or whatever, connecting rods and all that stuff, the wheels, everything breaks in, wears in a little bit differently. And let's face it, programming, it could be 1 millimajudiment, whatever, off as far as the code that went into it. I know I made that term up, but best way to describe it is in the trucking industry. Okay. I mean, being a long time truck driver, and then now I, wrench on them. I can tell you, you can take two semi tractors, same manufacturer, one number off, one right after another off of the lot or off of the assembly line. Okay. And you can take them out and drive them, and they are going to drive slightly different. The steering wheel might just feel slightly tighter, or shifting the gears might be slightly off compared. And the reason why, I honestly, the only thing I can think of is it's just that minute difference in the manufacturing process. And it's the same with model railroading, where there are tolerances, generally tolerances when you're getting into gearing and stuff like that. Even in model railroading, they're thousandths. The tolerances are only like, anywhere from 2 thousandths to, or less to, 3 or 4 thousandths difference is only the little gap. And then we're talking minute. And modeling, those tolerances are smaller yet, but the smaller, like what we model, HO scale, N scale, Z, O, whatever, even 1-inch scale, like our good friend Eric, there's only so much minute tolerance you can do in those, because the parts are so small. There's, manufacturing, not capabilities, limitations that allow them to make, to meet those in that tolerance range. Well, then the tolerance range has to be opened up a little bit, like in our case for the modeling side, because the parts are so small. So that's another reason why, and it's even more important, especially when you're doing two different locomotives. I don't care if the decoders are the same or different, two different manufacturers as a prime example. I just speed matched my my Athearn Blue Box SD40-2 Snoot Nose. Yes, my Gray Ghost I love, KCS. I just speed matched it to my Scale Trains AC 4400. Okay, the Scale Trains has the Lock Pilot, ESU Lock Pilot decoder. I may eventually down the road change it over to a lock sound, but right now we're just doing the Lock Pilot. But it's really big in that because different manufacturers, different motors, different gears, you know. So anyways, moving forward, you know, I guess before we move forward, when you want to run locomotives together, you need to really have them speed matched within reason, as closely as possible. You're going to have some movement back and forth. You're not ever going to get them perfectly speed matched. In fact, I've talked to our good friend Eric, who is a Class 1 locomotive engineer and has been for his basically entire work career. He even said in the real life, you know, when locomotives are consisted together in real life, they don't run perfectly together, right? You know, one might tug a little bit for a bit and then it might push, or they might be balanced out on a flat spot, whatever. So you have to find a good middle ground when you're speed matching. Okay, get them up, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but get them up close to where, you know, and try them at different speeds and stuff like that. And when you're happy with, okay, they're not really tugging too much, but not pushing too much or whatever, then just let it be, and then hook them up with different locomotives, and, you know, start pulling trains. And really, when you start pulling cars, are where you're going to realize that you may have to make a few adjustments down the road. But so, anyways, we discussed in episode 71 and 73, but getting into speed matching, I always recommend people, especially if you are doing it through the throttle of your DCC system. I don't care if it's Digitrax, NCE, MRC, TCS. I don't care. Start that route, and most of us are going to be doing that route unless you are interested in going to JMRI, which my discussion of this is actually going to be geared towards using JMRI Decoder Pro, and I'll explain why here in a bit. But basically, you have the basic speed matching configuration variables, and from this point forward, CV I'm going to be saying for configuration variables. But per the NMRA, CV number 2, number 6, and number 5 are going to be the three main ones that you're going to be using, okay, for doing any kind of speed matching, or even if you're not speed matching, changing the characteristic of that locomotive and how it runs. Side note, you know, maybe you've got a Jeep or a GP40 or an SD40 or something that okay, that's going to be on switching duty. I'm not going to have it on highball or, you know, mainline service. I don't want it to react like those other ones. You can go into, and that's another reason why you can start with these simple ones. But CV2 is your starting voltage, okay? CV6 is your mid voltage, so as far as when you turn that throttle up, okay? You know, and then CV5 is the high voltage. Don't ask me why they put 6 as the mid and 5 as the high. I don't know. But those are going to be the three, especially if you're doing it through your throttle. Those are going to be the three you want to start with. And then CV3 and CV4, which are acceleration and deceleration, respectively. Acceleration and deceleration basically meaning when you turn that throttle up, how quickly does it get up to speed? The higher the CV value, like CV value of 0, you turn it up for acceleration, and it's going to go up as fast, or it's going to basically react quick. Whereas and every locomotive or decoder, and I should say every locomotive and decoder pair are totally different. But let's say you put an acceleration rate of 50 in for an acceleration, and you turn it. It might take 3 or 4 seconds. You'll see it start to go, but it'll take 3, 4, 5 seconds maybe to get up to full speed based on where your throttle is, okay? And then likewise for the deceleration, you turn it to 0, it might take 3 or 4 seconds for it to slow down and stop. I recommend when doing any kind of locomotive speed adjustment, whether it is speed matching or you're just fine-tuning that locomotive to, like we said before, switching operations versus mainline operations, make sure your CV3 and CV4, your acceleration and deceleration, are set to 0 to start out. And that way you don't have that added slower speed up and slower stopping while you're trying to figure out speed, okay? And then once you get, let's say you're programming a switcher, once you get that switcher, okay, this is the max speed, I like this, and then, okay, when I'm at, like I use the max, as far as my throttle goes, okay, the number on my throttle, the max that anybody's ever going to be turning their throttles up on my railroad is to notch 30, okay? No, that's not the same as model or real railroads, but on my Digitrax system, the max is going to be 30. And most of the time it's going to be less than that, 25. But generally speaking, running into towns and stuff like that, it's honestly the average speed notch is going to be about 15 or less, okay? So, if you're programming your cars, you can always go back and, okay, well, maybe I want it to be more realistic, and that's where the acceleration, deceleration come in. But for speed matching, definitely leave those off unless you have, a prime example, my scale trains, it's got no matter what, and I've went through every CV, unless there's something I'm missing. When you turn the throttle for it to get going, there is a slight delay. It's like a second and a half delay before it actually takes off and starts moving. So my locomotives, when I programmed them, I had to program in a little bit of acceleration time, using CV3 to be able to somewhat compensate for that. But anyways, moving forward, I'm basically giving you an overview right now of the CVs, and then once we get through those, I'll go in and explain a little bit more how I do things with these different characteristics, which will be after break here. But so there are CV67 to CV94. If assuming you have, I guess it doesn't matter. Those are the CVs for the 28-step speed table. Okay, we see a lot of 128 speed table, and then you see 14 step speed table. I honestly recommend it. I don't care what system you got. I don't care if it's just it's just a Lupa track that you set up on your kitchen table, for the weekend, and then you tear it down during the week. If you're running DCC, I recommend, if your system allows it, and most decoders do, switch everything over to the 28 step. The 128 step, it can get confusing, and I even get confused sometimes. What's the difference between 28, 128? There's so many different inputs on it out there. Just for this discussion's sake, we're just going to treat it like it's just 28 step. We're not going to worry about the 128. But basically, think about 14 step to 28 steps. So let's say going from 0 to 100 mile an hour, 0 to 100. Okay. as you turn the throttle in 14 steps, basically take that 100 divided by 14. Okay, so I don't have, well, let's do this. Give me a second here. I didn't think about this ahead of time. So 100 divided by 14. So every time you turn that throttle up, okay, from 0 to 1 to 2, so on and so forth, each time it's going to increase the speed by 7.14, blah, 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 okay? So we'll just call it seven notches, okay? Whereas, and I'm doing the conversion, whereas each time for 28 steps, you turn it from 0 to 1, it's only accelerating it for argument's sake, 3.6, so 3.5 notches, okay? So what does that mean? That means a 28-step speed table is going to give you finer adjustment, tuning, operation of your locomotives. You're not going to get that, okay, you go from, say you're running it at number 5 on your throttle and you run it to number 6, all of a sudden it just speeds up immediately and maybe is a little too fast. Well, maybe you're running in 14-step. Look into switching it over to 28-step, and that way each turn of the throttle, yes, it does increase or decrease, but it's not as big of a jump is basically what it is. Now, on the speed table, like we said, there's CV 67 to 94 are your speed tables. So 67 is speed step 1, and 94 is speed step 28. Okay, and then everything in between, right? Those can be adjusted to fine-tune the speed characteristics of a locomotive. And after the break, we're going to get in. I'll get in to explain why I like the JMRI Decoder Pro. For the little bit of added, I would recommend, if you are planning on having more than probably 3 or 4 locomotives running on your railroad, not necessarily all at once, but at some point they're going to run together with one another, and you're running DCC, I would make sure either your DCC system has the capability to hook up to a computer, or see how much it costs for the add-ons if you already have a DCC system, whatever the computer interface component is, because what we're going to get into here after a break is really, it's a lot easier. I like using the JMRI. I like using the JMRI Decoder Pro 4. But anyways, we'll get into that then. But so yeah, if you are just doing it through your throttle, keep that in mind. CV 67 to 94 are your speed step for 28 step. Like I said, 67 is the low one, 94 is the high one. And then now on the outside of those parameters, you have CV number 66 and number 95. Now what those are is 66 your forward and 95 is your reverse, but it's trim. Okay, so instead of, like, for argument's sake, each notch in your regular adjustments, okay, in your 28 steps, say step 1, you have it set at 1. Okay, step 2 is set at 5. All right. Basically, what the trim does is, once you get that everything, you get the locomotives running, they're close, but you still have one maybe is a little bit, it catches up a little more in forward movement, but then maybe in reverse it drags a little bit. You can use the trim, which are CV 66 and 95 for forward and reverse respectively, to make minute adjustments in each individual directions. Whereas the main speed table, that's set up, it doesn't matter if you're going forward or reverse. Whereas the trim feature allows you to adjust, okay, maybe going forward, everything's fine, but when you throw it in reverse, maybe your locomotive that you're matching up to your main locomotive, maybe it's too fast. Okay, well, you need to back it down. Well, then you would adjust, depending on which direction it's going, you would make your fine adjustment. And so basically the trim is fine-tuning once you get your main speed table set up. So anyways, we are going to take a break, and if I haven't bored you or confused you enough yet, I'm going to try to do that after the break. Not really. I hope after the break it helps a little better. But anyways, so stick around. We'll be back shortly.
Are you searching for high quality yet affordable wood structure kits? Look no further than Mud Creek Models. They produce high quality HO and N scale wood structure kits and details. Check them out at www.mudcreekmodels.com. That's MUDD creekmodels.com. Or you can find them on Facebook. You will not be disappointed.
Are you interested in operations? Are you new to operations? Are you a seasoned operator? Consider joining the Operations Special Interest Group, or OPSIG. The OPSIG is an organization dedicated to operations from the experienced operator to the novice. Their principal purpose is to discuss, develop, and disseminate ways of operating model railroads to realistically emulate practices of the prototype. This includes sharing information on various methods of generating, moving, and controlling traffic to heighten the feeling that our models are an active and integral part of the national rail transportation network, serving shippers and consignees throughout the nation. Their membership is a tremendous resource to exchange information and ideas and to develop improved ways for hobbyists to learn the art and science of operating a railroad in a particular model railroad. Their quarterly publication, The Dispatcher's Office, is another great resource. It's loaded with articles about operations, including paperwork, planning, execution, and hosting of sessions. Annual membership is only $10 per year. Membership includes 4 issues of the Dispatcher's Office e-version, access to their Dispatcher's Office archives, an industry database to help add realism to your operations, and a directory of operating layouts across the country. If you like to operate or are just becoming aware of this exciting and growing part of the hobby, this is the place. All are welcome. You can find them at www.opsig.org. That's www.opsig. Back from break. Yep. All right. So if I didn't confuse you in the first half about speed matching, I really hope I can clear some things up just through the rest of the discussion here in the second half. Either way, and I don't claim to be an expert on this by no means, but I have done a fair amount of it. So if you have any questions regarding that, please do not hesitate. Reach out to us, ModelRailroadTalk@gmail.com. And I'll do my best to answer the question that you might have on speed matching, or not even necessarily just speed matching, but adjusting the speed profile of a DCC locomotive. Now, I should have said this in the first half, but mind you, all this is for digital command control, decoder-equipped locomotives that are running on a digital command control system. DC locomotives, back in the day, the way they did speed matched a lot of times was changing out gears, wheels, different things like that. This isn't going to affect. You might even have a DCC decoder equipped locomotive, and you're running it on a regular DC system. This still is not going to give you any kind of adjustments, because this is it's adjusting using the CVs it's for DCC. So I guess I'll start off with that. So getting back to it, I like to use, and it's taken me quite a while. I know from the early days I said, JMRI, I'm not cutting them down. Nothing, I'm not saying anything negative about JMRI. But for me, I was at the beginning, I was like, I don't want to get into the computer thing. I don't, that's what it was, I'm telling you right now, here and now, that if you have a computer or a spare laptop or computer, and your system will hook up to your DCC system, can hook up to a computer, get the cables that it takes. Mine is just basically a USB like printer cable. Um, Download JMRI Decoder Pro, because it is going to make your not only speed matching but locomotive speed profiling much easier. And the reason being is well, first of all, let me say this is not just a pitch for JMRI. It isn't. For me, it's easier. I'm able to see the values on the computer screen, whereas before I got into using it, I had a locomotive I would take a locomotive. I had basically a spreadsheet that I had these sheets made. I'd print it out. I'd put the locomotive address at the top, and I had a column for the CV number, and I'd have, I don't know, 6 or 7 spots, rows to, or I should say columns to the right of that for each row. And if I was making CV adjustments, configuration variable adjustments, I'd put whatever CV number it is, and then I'd put what the number would be in there. And I was only using programming track. And then I'd have to take it off there, put it on the main line, run it, do my testing, and then, okay, I need to adjust this, then put it back, or either run it back onto the programming track or put it back on the programming track. Now, you can program on the main. Some locomotives and some systems do allow you, or I should say a lot of them do now, which is easier because then you're not either physically moving or running your locomotive into a programming track that often. You still need a programming track for, initial setup, decoder address and stuff like that. But for doing speed adjustments, being able to program on the main is the way to go. So, but what I did before is, let's say CV, I'd be changing CV2 let's say I would read it. It would have a value of, I don't know, we're going to say 5. Okay, well, it's starting a little slower than I want. I want it to go a little faster. So, okay, I'm going to, I would adjust it to CV8 or a value 8 for CV2. Program it. Okay, put it on the track. Okay, that's perfect. Or maybe it needs a little more, a little less. Then you have to adjust it. Well, in the meantime, I'm writing these numbers down on this spreadsheet I did. And then initially, I was going to go back and start and plug it back into a spreadsheet and have a spreadsheet for each locomotive. Well, then I started doing research on JMRI, and there more the Decoder Pro at that time, and it takes all that out of it. As long as you save the profile, you have the locomotive put in that you're programming, which you have to do. It forces you, okay, you have to at least put in a minimal amount of information to be able to save it into Decoder Pro. You can make your adjustments through the basic speed table like we talked, where it's just the start, mid, and high voltage, or you can get into the 28-step speed table, the more advanced, and you can adjust it. And as long as when you're done with that pop-up screen for that locomotive, as long as you hit save, JMRI Decoder Pro saves it for you. So the next time, let's say you're running around and maybe it's a brand new locomotive, and you run around and you notice either it's running a little faster or a little slower because it's been running for some time now and the gears are kind of broke in a little bit, and it's got basically it's broke in, just like we break in our vehicles. There's a break-in period. There is on locomotives as well. And maybe it starts speeding up or slowing down a little bit. Okay, well, I need to make some adjustments. Well, you can go into Decoder Pro, and while it's running around on the main, as long as you have the setup, you can pull that locomotive up, and you know what? It's running a little fast for that. You can go into the speed table, make your adjustment, hit save, or I guess I don't remember exactly what the button says, but basically it sends that information, that packet of information for whatever has been changed to the locomotive, and you can actually physically watch the change. Well, some changes are so minute you can't really see, but you know what I mean. It does it on the fly, and that's why I like the Coder Pro. But anyways, getting back to it, back on track there. The biggest thing is, and we've talked about this before, is finding a locomotive in your fleet that you want to match to. Some characteristics, one obviously that runs well, but it starts smoothly and it stops smoothly. When it's running, assuming your track is clean and it's not track issue, that it doesn't, kind of jerk or speed up, slow down a little bit, like there's a gear catching or something like that. Okay. You want to find a good locomotive, or I should say the best locomotive that runs decent on your setup, and then take that locomotive and make your adjustments. Is this going to be a mainline locomotive? Is this going to be a switching locomotive? Is it going to be a combo mainline but use the switching operations? So you're going to want kind of middle ground. Figure it out. Make your adjustments as far as, the speed table, whether you're using the basic or you're using the advanced speed table. And once you get that locomotive, when I say that, I'm not saying go to your layout right now and maybe you've thought of the exact locomotive you want to do. When you get home or whenever you listen to this, I'm not saying go to your locomotive, your layout, make the adjustments, and then start matching your locomotives to it. No, take that main, that what I call main locomotive, and actually run it around a little bit with your adjustments. How does it react? Do you really like how it reacts? Because there's a lot of things. Prime example, it's an off subject, but it's still sound equipped cars. They're cool as crap, but I don't have sound equipped cars on my on my layout right now, because just sitting there when I'm working or doing small stuff, it gets annoying having those plus locomotives. And I've got the volumes turned down, but in my small area, it gets overwhelming. So that's kind of the same way of, okay, well, this thing operates when you turn it up. You can, if it's a sound equipped, you can hear the engine rev up, and then it starts going, and then, and then when you shut it down, it glides a little bit, and then it, and you can hear the brake squeal and this and that. Operate it. Okay. You may end up liking it that way. It might stay that way. Prime example, I like a little bit of delayed, or whatever you want to call it, acceleration value, if you will. But I know when I'm coming to a stop, last thing I want is to misjudge, or maybe I didn't pay attention or whatever, and I go and shut it off. Last thing I want to do is really mess up and not pay attention to where the locomotive is, and I'm backing into some cars to pull them, and I push them off the edge of the layout, or I break an end stop and push them into a building, or just push them off the track and do damage. So I prefer to have no deceleration value. So basically, when I shut her down, it breaks like now. And mind you, when I'm operating, I do the slow down process as part. I'll slow it down a little bit, and then once I'm getting closer, I'll slow it down, using the throttle itself. I personally would rather have a little more control of that aspect, the braking aspect. Okay. So, but anyways, run that locomotive, run it, even if it's a mainline locomotive, run it in a few switching operations, because you never know. You may, if you do get into operations ever, as far as operating and moving using cards and waybills stuff or whatever, you may end up having to use that locomotive for a switcher at some point. So check it in all different aspects. to make sure, okay, this is a good, well-rounded, okay, maybe for switching it's a little bit higher speed, but you know what? It'll work. Um, Anyways, once you've done that and you're 100% satisfied, this locomotive number 1234 is I'm not going to change anything about it. I love how it operates. Good. Then what I recommend, if you don't have JMRI Decoder Pro, this is going to take a little bit of time. But remember, we went back, we were talking about in the first half about CV number 67 to 94, which is the 28-step speed table. If you use that table, you're going to have to go through and write down whatever the numbers are in those for each one of those configuration variables, so you have them. You want something to start with, even if you are matching a locomotive that is a completely different brand and decoder and whatnot, because it gives you, having those numbers, it gives you somewhere to go to start with, because everything is a number value in 0 to 255 on most cases, okay? So generally speaking, 128 is the middle on those. So like on, we were talking about the forward and reverse trim. If you're not going to use those at all, they should be set at a 0. But if you are going to be using them, you want to set both values at 128. And then, increasing the number will increase the effect, decreasing the number from 128 will decrease the effect, kind of thing. But get yourself in that situation. Even if you're just using the start, mid, and high, just the basic, write down the numbers that those are at. Because then, different locomotives react differently with different decoders. You can try. So let's say you're using the 3-step. You can take those numbers out of this, the locomotive that you're going to be matching to, plug them into this other locomotive, and see that you might be surprised. It might very well match up fairly close. On the flip side of it, it might be totally, completely off. All right. And that's where I came in with, that's why I recently just got done speed matching all my locomotives, because I got the Scale Trains locomotive with the Lock Pilot decoder, and I was trying to match it to my Intermountain locomotive. I think it was 5012. I think was my KCS locomotive. It's a Gevo. And for the life of me, I could not get it speed matched, my Scale Trains speed matched to the Intermountain, even though that locomotive was an ESU lock sound and this one's a Lock Pilot. I'm like, okay, well, I have 2 of my Intermountains that are not, they're just Lock Pilot. So I'm like, well, let's try this. So I grabbed one of them, got the numbers in there, got it, the speed profile for where I wanted it, tried to match the Scale Trains to that, and sure enough, I couldn't get it to match up going, I guess I couldn't get my Scale Trains to match up to my Intermountain, no matter what I did. And on top of it, the numbers for the Scale Train now mind you, this is using the 28-step table, but like the graph was way higher, way higher than it was for the Intermountain. Even though they're both Lock Sound decoder, they're Lock Pilot decoders, ESU Lock Pilot, it's weird. So I'm like, all right. So I went back to my Scale Trains locomotive, and I'm like, well, let's work on this. So I messed around with that for, I'd say probably about a week, making minor adjustments on how it accelerated and how it would stop, and in the middle, the speed curve kind of in the middle. Okay, when I'm, when I turn the throttle to, I have mine set as an example. When I turn the throttle to 1, it doesn't move. You could, if you put your ear close enough, you can sometimes hear, but usually it'll just just barely start creeping when I click to 2. Okay. And I want mine set up that way to where one, in a sense, turns it on, and two is when it just starts creeping. And then I can bump it up to 5. For me, I generally do 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 for my increments on my throttle. Okay. So anyways, I got it fine tuned. Now, this is what kills me is I basically I'm doing the same thing, just like my scale trains. I couldn't get it to my scale trains lock pilot locomotive. I couldn't match it to my Intermountain lock pilot locomotive, but I could get my Intermountain lock pilot and lock sound and all my other locomotives speed matched up to my scale trains. I don't get it. I really don't. But, you have to take, that's where I'm saying you have to find that locomotive that you like, get it running the way you want. And I knew the scale trains because after I put the decoder in it, I ran it around. I have every locomotive pull my my incline to go to the second level and going down to see how, the tractive force in both ways basically. And it works well. And so I just recently got done doing that, and then I finally got my my Athearn Blue Box, which runs. I can't believe how well it runs, and the only thing I've done is put a decoder in it. It runs so smooth and everything. It's my KCS Gray Ghost SD40-2 snoot nose, and I got it speed matched up, and it runs beautifully connected to the scale trains. So I don't know what it is about the scale trains trying to match it up to the others, but I don't know. I got them rematched up, so that's why I did that. But it honestly, there's no downright like you could get a hold of me and say, hey Gary, I got the same locomotive. I got the scale trains ES 4400. I even have it in the KCS with the lock pilot. Could you send me your 28 step speed numbers, and or whatever you change to do the speed profile for that locomotive? Sure, I can and I will. But there again, how many times or how much break-in power is on the locomotive, or break-in time, I meant. How much break-in time has there been? How much running, time? And going back to the beginning when I was talking about, manufacturing, you can try it, and it may get you close, okay? May very well get you close to how mine is running. Almost to the point that you might be able to, if you were ever to bring that locomotive over, and we might be able to consist them together, and they might run well. But on the flip side, they may not, because they might be off slightly more because of that manufacturing. So speed matching it seems daunting until you actually get in and start doing it. That's why I highly recommend, if you've never done it but you want to, or even changing the speed profile of a locomotive, okay? Maybe you're not ready to match yet. Start with the basics, the basic speed tables, configuration variable, 2 for start voltage, 6 for mid, and 5 for high. Make sure CV3 and 4, which are your acceleration and deceleration, make sure those are shut off until you've got that locomotive speed matched, speed profiled how you want it to run. Then from there, you can go in and add acceleration time or deceleration time. Like I said, you might be like me or it might be opposite of me, and you like, okay, well, I've actually got a plan to start shutting this down at this point so I don't run cars off. Or you might be like me and say, nope, when that throttle hits 0, I want the locomotive to stop now, So any questions on speed matching, anything, or even speed profile in your locomotive, I'd be more than happy to help, give you my unbiased opinion. you can add. I know I talked to our good friend Benjamin here a few weeks ago about DCC systems, and I know I'm a Digitrax fan. Like I told him, it's what I know. That's why I never switched. It's what I know from before, you know. And he was throwing some stuff at me, and I was giving him ideas to think about when, I guess, how to choose a system. Sit down, make a givens and druthers list on DCC system. What do you want? You know, what do you absolutely have to have, and what would you like, but you could live without as far as features, so on and so forth. And it really, I think, helped him open his eyes up to, oh man, maybe I need to do a little more research, you know, rather than just going based off of this manufacturer says this, you know. But it is what it is. So, yeah, if you have any questions on like speed profiling, speed matching, please reach out to us, modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. And moving on, so some updated news for the Iowa Eastern Railroad. Thanks to our good friend Benjamin, who I just talked about. If you don't know, check him out. It's KCS, Kansas City Southern, Baxter Springs Division. I know he's got a Facebook group, and I know he's got a YouTube channel, but he's also posted on our Facebook page and stuff like that. Longtime listener and friend of ours now. But after talking with him, he has, and I'm not going to tell you his story. I'm hoping to have him on next, or to get things worked out to where he'll can be on next episode and tell his own little story on this. But I have decided, and nothing major, but for the Iowa Eastern Railroad, I'm backdating it. Now, most people, when they hear the term backdating or forward dating, whatever, you know, I'm basically modeling currently, right now, as it sits, I'm modeling current times. When people hear backdating, they generally think of, oh, like, you know, steam diesel, early diesel transition, or early diesel, you know, time frame, or maybe steam era. No. We're talking, and I'm thinking anywhere from between 5 and 10 years from now. And that's from after talking with Benjamin. So thanks, Benjamin. But my whole thing is the more I thought about it, is it's too easy to, especially when you're modeling modern day, it's too easy to get in that rut of, okay, you know, the railroad you're modeling, you know, like me, I'm proto freelance. Well, my proto side is the equipment. The rest of it's freelance, right? So it's too easy to, okay, well, CPKC has their new paint scheme, and now, okay, well, their new locomotives are coming out. Well, now, if I stay modeling the CPKC, then that means I'm going to have to buy those and get them on the railroad. Otherwise, it's not going to, you know, as time goes on, I'm going to have to try to keep up. And now, before I go any further, first and foremost, if I could get my hands on at least 2 of those locomotives with the new CPKC paint scheme, they're going to be on the railroad. Trust me. I don't care how far back I date the railroad. I think the new paint scheme is cool as crap. Although I am a little saddened by the fact that there's really no Kansas City Southern, whether it be, well, let's face it, how much can you do gray ghost or white ghost, but like the Southern Bell paint scheme, there's not really any Southern Bell KCS as far as the paint goes. So I'm a little, I don't want to say unhappy, but I'm a little just not, you know, but I still love the new paint scheme. But anyways, but my whole thing is I got to think about it. I'm like, you know, I'm a huge fan of the SD40-2s. I've always been this, and we've talked about this. We've had Eric on here when we've talked about those kind of locomotives. But I'm also a fan of like the GE, like the C44-9s and the AC4400s, the big locomotives like the SD, the older SD60s and stuff like that. I don't mind those, but I don't know. For me, there's something about an AC4400 or a Gevo or a C44-9, wide cab, and then even more so an SD40 of any way, shape, or form, whether it's a -2, -3, snoot, regular, whatever. I don't care. Those are my main ultimate locomotives that I'm in love with. And so that's the biggest thing. By me predating or backdating, I should say, my locomotive or my railroad, and I'm at the spot where I don't have anything scenery wise. So I mean, it's just a matter of, and really going back 10, even 15 years, I'm still going to be able to be in that range of, there's still, for the KCS, there's still SD40s, -2s, 3s running around. I'm still going to be able to do that as far, and with scenery and stuff. So, I mean, it'll work out for me. But yeah, I've decided to do that because while I still like the Canadian Pacific, and I still like the CPKC, I realized through this time that I really think I'm a little bit more of a KCS, Kansas City Southern fan than anything. I've always liked their stuff in the past, but back in the past, I don't know if it was peer pressure or whatever, but like my last railroad, it was BNSF, I think a lot of that was because I'm also a fan. I was a fan of the Santa Fe, and I was a fan of the Burlington Northern and the Kansas City Southern. But, Maine, it's kind of in my area where I grew up and stuff like that, Kansas City Southern wasn't really a prominent name. It was more Burlington Northern or Santa Fe or Union Pacific. So you kind of, but now that, I've done some research and stuff like that, and actually got Benjamin now as a friend that he's modeling KCS. It's kind of cool to be able to model something, even though he's N scale in a totally different time era of the KCS. I don't know, probably at least 24 hours drive away from where I live, it's still kind of cool to have somebody to reach out to and BS about the KCS. So just like I reach out and talk to our good friend Eric, about real railroads and stuff for my own modeling, and I get to talk to him about the Santa Fe and the CNW and stuff. So anyways, that's enough on that. Also, if any of you listeners, my listeners here, have gone over to our YouTube channel and subscribed over there and watched our videos, I just want to say a huge thank you. No words can describe what it means to me to see all the views. The last video I put up, in a matter of 7 days, it's almost 5,000 views, which I know isn't like in the millions, like, trending, but for somebody like me, small time person, and, I've gained, a little over 200 followers or subscribers in the last week, from it. I just want you to know I really do appreciate it, and it means the world to me, and it really helps me, just like with this audio podcast on the video side. I know I said I was going to back off from the video, but I know that the YouTube is something that I am definitely pursuing now as well, and it makes me want to, do better with the videos and try to give more entertainment value in the videos as well. If you've been over to our YouTube channel, you've noticed the last, 3 videos, there's a new introduction montage, and I really like it, and I think it's a good thing. And our good friend Eric O, he basically did that montage for us, and I thank him very, very much, and I thank him almost every time we talk, because I think it's awesome. And so anyways, so yeah, check that out, Model Railroad Talk on YouTube. We still have a TikTok page, but with and I'm not trying to get into controversy here, but with the unknown about TikTok, yes, we still have a TikTok account, and I haven't done a video post on there for a while. I'm planning on doing another one, but since we don't really know the fate of that yet, that could change within the next 60 days or more or so. I'm not putting a lot of focus in that, but you can still reach out to us, modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. We still have our Facebook our Facebook page, Model Railroad Talk. Check it, hit us up over there, give us a like and follow over there. You can go to our website, www.modelrailroadtalk.com. And I guess that's about it. I want to thank you for listening into this episode. And I do have a few people lined up for the next couple episodes on deck, as long as our schedules work the next few episodes. Hopefully we'll have some guests on here. So thank you for sticking around, and keep your train on the tracks.